Okay, honorable mayors, dear colleagues, we'll resume with the next session, which will be led by our colleague at UN University Institute for Advanced Study of Sustainability, Ms. Mahesti Alkitasari. Oki, over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's nice to see that the first half of the sessions went very well, especially the introductions of the mayors and the ice-breaking thing. My name is Oki. You'll see me a couple of times throughout this Mayor's Academy sessions. So on behalf of the Academy, I would like to introduce the ESCAP flagship report, Future of Asian and Pacific Cities, Crisis Resilient Futures, which will be used as the primary reference for the Academy. Next slide. So this report is built upon a couple of previous reports, and these latest versions actually focus on addressing multiple interlinked crises in the city that is also resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, the effect of climate change, geopolitical tensions, and the growing food and energy crisis, as you may also notice in your cities. So the idea is for the report to provide guidance on how cities can better manage urbanizations while building resilience to this crisis and ensure that future development of cities is sustainable. You will find that the report support local governments, including yours, in the effort to save the post-pandemic pathways through long-term planning, decision making. So this includes ways to localize the SDGs and new also other city can contribute to. Next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So the report is organized into 4 thematic areas, which is how our modules 3 to 6 are organized. If you notice from Kurt presentations before the break, these 4 thematics areas are urban and territorial planning, resilience, multi-level climate actions, digital transformations in cities, and the last one is urban finance for sustainable development. In each of these chapter or thematic areas, you see there is interlinkage between these themes and the opportunities actually for your city and enhance the progress of cities, the Asia Pacific regions, how it is identified and can be applied. If you go through the report, you'll find that each of the thematic area or each of the chapters are actually equipped with case studies and also supported by comparative analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the similarities, differences, and practices of cities in the Asia Pacific region. So I hope you find it useful through the chapters of the books to prepare for the next sessions. So the finding and the insight from this report are actually intended to inform decision makers like you in develop more informed urban policy formulations, investment strategies, especially if you look in urban finance planning approaches. These you can find in urban and territorial planning as well as in resilient multi-level climate actions. Next slide. Next slide, please. So in the next 2 slides, including this one, I'm just going to go through a bit on each of the key thematic areas. And the first one in the urban and regional planning, the discussion is mostly focused on the interconnected network of system within cities and how cities can take benefit from urban and land use planning and compact cities to improve the quality of life of the communities and your people. And it's also introduced, you'll find introductions of holistic approaches that you can tap into to urban and regional planning in your city, which is fundamental to address the challenges that related to all aspects of urban life. including mobility, equitable access to services, affordable housing. So you'll find those in chapter 1, and these what is listed in screen now is the pathway that is fall under urban territorial planning. For example, to create how to create policy environment that leads into transformative and resilient urban planning. So, and the second key thematic area, which is targeting resilient and multi-level climate actions, you'll find different strategies that cities can use to advance a low carbon and resilient future, and helping cities to deal with the rapid pace of urbanizations, and which is often coupled with the rising GHG emissions because of the inadequate infrastructures. I heard earlier the introductions that you mentioned, some of you mentioned limited financial resources to finance urban development, and also often that city face competing development priorities, which is complicating the efforts to implement effective climate mitigation measures. So the pathway that you can learn from this chapter, particularly how to deploy innovative urban adaptation pathway to address this conflicting development priorities, existing and new climate risks, for example, and how to shift to low carbon sources to tackle the urban crisis. Next slide, please. So in these slides, you see the last two of the key thematic areas. The first one, or the third one is actually on urban digital transformations or digital transformation in cities. It's the main point of discussions in this chapter. The chapter focuses on ensuring inclusivity, accessibility, and equitable distribution of digital technology. And I think you also noticed that in the case in your city, how to deal that the digital technology is equitable, accessible, inclusive, especially in areas with limited infrastructure and resources. How to leverage partnership with the private sectors can be an opportunity for cities to drive innovations, mobilize investment, and digital solutions at scale, which ultimately targeted to have a progress toward attaining sustainable, inclusive, smart cities. So the couple of pathways that may be useful also for your city and developing your innovation is to develop people-centered national smart city policies and how to enhance urban governance capacity and to promote citizen engagement. And the lastly on urban finance for sustainable development, it focuses on identifying financial strategies that cities could effectively apply. So the discussion covered two types of layers of urban finance. The first one is municipal finance. So there are discussions about revenue, expenditure, grants, and intergovernmental transfer, how you can utilize user fee and charges that can be used to fund urban development projects and provide essential service. The other part is how you can look at strategies or to tap into urban financing mechanism that can be used to support larger infrastructure, for example, public transportations and housing projects. These include land-based financing capture, pension funds, municipal bonds. Those you'll find in this chapter. So the entire report is available online. If you haven't checked that after today's session, we invite you all to get familiar with the report and explore, especially its policy pathways and how you can have find similarities or differences, for examples with your cities, or try to contextualize it, which is it's going to be helpful for the discussions in the next session. So, which we also hope the report can assist you with developing initiative. That's from me regarding the introductions of the our handbook for the Mayor's Academy. So for the scenario exercise, I hope you have at least check and to familiarize yourself with the scenario. Can we go to the next session? To next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, Kurt, I can just start it, right? Or you wanted to have?
Yes, no, we're based on the number of mayors, we're going to reduce down to just scenario 2 and 3. So we'll reallocate those who were in the health crisis.
Okay, that's perfect. I think we have enough, right? So as I just wanted to introduce briefly about this exercise. Please be reminded that these scenarios are of hypothetical nature and it's not related to any of your cities. And the purpose of this exercise is actually to answer these 4 questions that we raise here regarding this hypothetical city. So we would like also and for the mayors to give their answers not based on their cities, but on the hypothetical situations of the scenario. So the 4 of the questions will be discussed during the next 25 minutes. And at the end of the scenario exercise will be regrouped for 10 minutes and for the mayor to share the result of your group discussions. So I think now suppose will be allocated to 2 groups. So it would be me in the waste management and you'll take the climate, right?
Yeah, Oliver. Yeah, I would also like to join the waste management group, okay? Okay, yeah.
Okay, I think I'll check because it's allocated based randomly. So that our hope is that all mayors will get familiar with the different issues in the city. That's why it's a hypothetical scenario. I got my invitation coming in, so we'll move to the next.
So you'll all be allocated to one of the 2 rooms, and Dr. Bernadia will facilitate one, and Hoki will facilitate another. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we starting to coming back. And in the next, I think around 8 minutes or so, we have time for each of the group to report back to the plenary. And I hope we certainly have a very nice discussions in the waste management group, and I hope the other groups also has a quite fruitful discussion. So just to cut short on time, I would allocate around 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes to each of the group to report back to the plenary, so to ensure that we are timely in our session. So from waste management group, I would like to invite my mayor from Turbat to report back to the plenary what we have discussed with regard to scenario 2 on waste management kindly please refer back on each of the aspect that we have discussed, which is executive actions, and then the considerations. Please, Mayor, the floor is yours. Mayor Turbat, you are muted. Thank you.
Sorry. First of all, as we discussed in our group, discussion, we have to pass the bill as we speak, and we must have awareness program, and we I don't know, engaging with other departments and private sectors and trade unions, local community, and academic institutions as well. And we also had to what information do we need to make decision. We required financing and resources, scientific basis, waste management system that we can use it scientifically, not rather than use it in a conventional way. And we also need to make successful strategies regarding regarding waste management from other cities and countries, so we can learn from that, and we can also implement those plans in our local cities. And we need to look at we need to break it into two phases, which is midterm plan.
I think we lost
and other will be
connection.
a long-term plan. If we need scenario. Hello, am I there?
Yes, we can
Can
hear
you hear
you.
me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. We need to break this into two phases. First phase will be immediate recovery from this scenario, which will need instant actions and cleaning up with these garbages. And the other will be on long-term plan, which we can use garbage cleaning with awareness program and with engaging the local community. And we can in initial phase we can collect the garbages with free of cost or with very minimum cost. But later, when the people will adopt the situation, and they feel they are aware enough, and when we feel they are aware enough and they are supporting us, then we can slowly risen up the prices or the taxes with the passage of time. We can use this tool to collect more taxes or more budget, so we can use it in more to gain more support to collect these to buy more machineries or technical stuff to make this up. For me, I think I must present it. I learned is in this way, and I present it as it's said.
Thank you very much, Mayor Turbat. Just to add a bit on what the mayors have discussed in this session is also midterm actions that related to investment to improve waste management infrastructures and practice, including, for example, urban community garden, and long-term actions related to policies and regulations, as well as establishment of sustainable waste management system. Then I would like to invite the representative from the second group on flood management and climate resilience, Dr. Bernadia, who would be representing the group. Which mayor? Okay, since I didn't see Dr. Bernadia, I would like to, which mayor is going to report back to the plenary?
Any volunteers from the flood management group to report back as a rapporteur?
I believe it was Mayor of Chandragiri. Please correct me if I'm mistaken.
Okay, Ganashyamji, can you please report back? You had to unmute. Yes.
Please, Mayor, the floor
From
is yours.
Nepal. Yeah.
Yeah,
You have 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
I already told about this flood management in our municipality. There is no any big rivers. I also said that the heavy rain is the most problem because we have no any water recharge system. Almost houses are the concrete houses, and the line and the road and the pipeline also the concrete, and so the infections are developed about these types of the problem. So when the heavy rain is being at that time, the almost rivers are flooded. They became flooded. So we have to follow this. So we have to make that type of the disaster. We make the retaining wall and or the plumbing wall. We have to make these sides of the problem. So when the flooded is come in our municipality in the river, then this is the we used about from the voluntary peoples and the armies, police, and other sectors, Red Cross, and we have to next NCC group is also here, National Disaster Group also here. So they will also came there, and so we equal, and we are together. We will solve this problem, and in this process, we have to manage the pre-manage is also we have the materials also, and we have giving the training also for our municipality people, municipality police, and the government police also, and we have to go together after the armed police also here. So we have to go together, and we first of all we get to make some meetings also, pre-meeting also here we have to do. So after then we decided about the problem of the project, and we go to with materials and the voluntary peoples also, and we have to go to the pre-planning also there. We do not advise, do not have permission to make in houses near about the rivers. Distance near about distance near minimum distance for the 10 meters from the river. But this is the distance pollution, and when the problem is come, we have to go to immediate. We go to determine to go to immediate through our municipality team. Likewise, the armed police and municipality police and the community also. This is our solving problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, it's really nice to see how very structures the executive actions and then move to immediate and midterm and long-term actions. So we appreciate your report back to the plenary, and I would if I just have, I think maybe 1 minute if any other questions coming in, like cross section from different mayors that wanted to have a clarifications, if any.
Can I suggest, based
Yes,
on our
Mayor.
experience in Ampang Jaya, the long-term action is actually to build back the infrastructures like roads, houses that being affected by the disaster, and also we need to get a connection with the funding from the federal or from the state government, and also from the NGOs that can assist us in the process of build back of the disasters area and or whatnot. Maybe some learning point that we face during we have actually slope sort of on
Landslides?
flat and also in the landslide. Yeah,
Landslides.
sorry for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rani, for these additions to the discussions with regard to flood resilience and also related to climate. So I will end the scenario sessions today and then move to the next session. Kurt, please. Thank you very much.
So I think Kurt is not with us anymore, and our next speaker is Tampon. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Fabio, and greetings to all honorable mayors. It's a pleasure to be with you today for this segment on Cities 2030 and global development frameworks, which I think is quite apt as we look towards your mayorship going ahead and the global goals set out to 2030. Next slide. So just to introduce the global development frameworks, I'm going to help to share a bit of a refresher on them, many of which I'm sure that you're already quite aware, but nonetheless, before we move forward, it's useful to reflect back on how far that we've come as well. So when we're considering the Agenda 2030 for sustainable development, we understand that it builds upon decades of intensive negotiations and deliberations, all the way right down to the grassroots level, but also up to parliaments worldwide. So as we see here depicted on the screen, we've witnessed a profound series of global development frameworks, particularly that were adopted between the years 2015 and 2016, directly after the 2030 agenda, but also collectively recognizing that they establish the overarching means, not only by how we review, but how we drive progress towards the achievement of targets, whether they relate to climate change via the Paris Agreement, disaster risk reduction via the Sendai framework, sustainable urbanization via the New Urban Agenda, as well as financing for development through the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. Next slide, please. So more than ever, what we know is governments and stakeholders, including citizens themselves, need to come together to address what has been described by the UN Secretary General as the greatest threat to humanity. So that's namely climate change. As a successor to the Kyoto Protocol, which preceded it, this sentiment was the basis for the adoption of the Paris Agreement in 2015, at the time signed by, I know, 197 parties. So that was unprecedented to mention at the time as well. There's 193 member states. So 197 is quite a remarkable achievement. And at the time, agreeing to a 2-degree Celsius ceiling. And as many of you might already know, world leaders have since revised that target to be even more ambitious, limiting global warming now to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century. And the reality is that to survive and thrive as humanity, greenhouse gas emissions must peak by next year at the latest and have to decline by 43% by 2030. So unless we can achieve these targets, then we'll unfortunately breach that 1.5 degree centigrade ceiling. Next slide, please. So now in your everyday duties as mayors, and no doubt you have to deal with all the SDGs and in many cases multiple ones in different settings. So you've likely experienced firsthand how one concern such as waste management can have a cascading effect on clean water and sanitation, influenced by the availability of infrastructure, and they also have directly results from our own lifestyles and consumption patterns connected to livelihoods, right? So this speaks to how the 17 SDGs that you see here, regardless of how unique they are also at the same time integrated and indivisible in their nature, all having relationships connected with each other as well. So of course, with the period being until 2030. Next slide, please. So if I can help to conceptualize the relevance of the Sustainable Development Goals, one way that can often be useful is through this diagram here, where we see the 3 pillars of sustainable development: economy, society, and environment, right? So the central economy pillar, encompassing SDGs 8, 9, 10, and 12, interface with society, so those that we support and what you lead in your constituencies. So the society pillar encompassing SDGs 1 to 7, as well as 11 to 16, but ultimately bounded by the environment pillar, which encompasses SDGs 6, 13 to 15. So in this way, the central spine of the SDGs you see there in the middle is SDG 17 on partnerships, which binds the 3 pillars together and ensures that we continue to achieve them. So it's also relevant to highlight in this context of this slide how, as a whole, the Sustainable Development Agenda is bounded by and reliant upon what we recognize to be our finite environment, one that we only have one planet, and how we need to conserve and preserve to ensure that we stay within the limits and boundaries that the planet can support without risking and compromising its longevity. Next slide, please. So early this year in February, some of you may have heard and been here in Bangkok, ESCAP colleagues launched at the Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development, the Asia Pacific SDG Progress Report, which certainly I highly recommend you read if you happen to have the chance to do so. I'll actually take a quick minute and just pop that in the chat. So if you have the chance later, you can review that at your own leisure. But from this report, what we appreciated is that the region at its current pace, as business as usual, as we might say, is so far away from achieving all of the 17 SDGs that we would need a full 32 years. In other words, unless we all come together, like we are doing today now, and amplify our collective efforts, the earliest that we have a hope of achieving the SDGs would not be until 2062, right? So let that sink in. Not only are we at a serious risk of missing the target on the majority of the SDGs, so the line there that you see, 2023, is kind of what we would say is present day, and we're already 2024 here, right? But it's what we need to reach in order to make sure that we're on track to achieve the SDGs. And none of the SDGs are we even at that target, right? And even more concerning, what we're witnessing in cases like SDG 13 on climate action is actually a regression in terms of how far we're progressing. So we're going backwards on that. And the other point to note in this depiction here is that over half of the SDG indicators, at least within this region here, we do not have sufficient data, particularly for those indicators that relate to gender equality on SDG 5, as well as peace, justice, and strong institutions in SDG 16, right? So this is quite concerning. So not only are we not getting to the target, but we don't even have an understanding of how far we're progressing towards it as well. So more absolutely needs to be done to ensure that that data is received. And we'll touch upon later what your critical role is, certainly at the local level, in helping us to compile and get that data there as well. So like the theme of the report on showcasing transformative actions, what we're doing here today and over the course of the Mayor's Academy, we need to share more and learn from each other, and of course, openly in that process as well. Next slide. So when we're thinking about the links between the SDGs and cities, as leaders of each of your respective cities, the SDG, which you perhaps might have been exposed to already, is SDG 13, acknowledging our collective pursuit to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So one way of looking at this could be through the depiction you see on the left-hand side of the screen there, considering the provision of urban basic services, so be it infrastructure, housing, education, sanitation as one critical dimension, or the right arm of SDG 11, while reviewing our ecosystems and natural resources, whether it be on land, water, or air, as a complementary dimension, or the left arm of SDG 11 there as well. Now, between these two dimensions, what it's vital to understand is also how we help to achieve equity and equality, because often what we find is that there's a struggle between resources and how we provide adequately services, right? So one hand, you're compromising the environment by building infrastructure, but on the other hand, you're also providing the means for development and growth and prosperity, right? So how do you balance that in a way that's fair and equitable to everybody, and leveraging partnerships in that time frame as well? So in practice, just to note as well, we all know that the SDGs have an urban dimension to them. And as Dr. Bernardia from UCLG ASPAC had also described earlier, our ability to achieve 2/3 of the SDGs heavily relies on the implementation of the local level, which is, of course, where your leadership and your your work in that local level also comes through very strongly. Next slide, please. So let's take a step back and think about the Asia Pacific region. So across the Asia Pacific region where we reside, what we are witnessing right now is unparalleled mushrooming and consuming. And I'm not talking about lunch, even though I'm holding you from lunch right now. But if you're thinking about that yourselves already, just consider the Asia region already accounts for half of the global food market. 3/4 of the vegetables globally are produced in Asia. And taking Southeast Asia as an example, food production also is incredibly energy and water intensive. It contributes to 30% of greenhouse gas emissions and 80% of deforestation in the Southeast Asia region. So as you can appreciate, in a region which already accounts for 60% of urban dwellers, the significant impacts which our cities have, whether related to energy or food consumption, water usage, or our attitudes to waste have on the environment. So this underscores why more actions need to be delivered in cities, and hopefully with your help through your cities as well. Next slide. So that takes me to this series of slides around localizing and why is it important. So at the start of the presentation, we examined the global development frameworks which underpin the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. So let us take a moment to expand on what your role is as mayors and why the actions and decisions that you take are essential to support the achievement of the SDGs. We note the significance of multi-level governance, and by that I mean, ensuring that the SDGs at your local level and recognizing that they also directly contribute to the achievement of national targets in your federal or national level programming, but also the concept of subsidiarity, which acknowledges that you as a mayor ultimately know what is best in terms of the local needs and concerns for your local constituents, right? So while the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development and its complementary development frameworks, which we touched on earlier, help to offer normative principles that we observe, the concept of localizing or the concept of localizing SDGs. What this recognizes is that these goals and targets and indicators that are framed also need to be context-based. So they need to be based and informed upon local needs, your own unique situation, the characteristics of your city, and only then can we properly assess local progress. Next slide. So we put together a series of steps, right, around how we look at the localization of SDGs. So firstly, encouraging cities to initiate an inclusive and participatory process to raise awareness with SDGs. Of course, this is both inside the local government with your departments, but also with key community stakeholders. Now, through the group that is assembled in that process, it's also necessary to develop your own local SDG agenda that as you can see here, is ambitious and realistic. So in that way, you can ensure that there's buy-in from everyone in the process, there's accountability, and everybody feels that they have a stake in the process that they've put forward together. With these agreed goals in mind, then we need to look at what existing mechanisms are available to help us get there. And that might include identifying where capacities need to be developed, what organizations such as the members of the organizing partners here, how we can support you in potentially supporting you to arrive there through education and training like we're doing now, aligning with national mechanisms, which sometimes yields additional finances. So through national budgetary allocations, thematic pooled funds, or other regional and global financing streams. So of course, as you're already participating in this network of fellow mayors, as you might recall earlier highlighted by the mayor of Nakhon Si Thammarat, it can also help open doors and even just relationships between other mayors that can support you in your journey. So finally, to assist you with your VLRs, they also support in the monitoring and evaluation of progress as well. Next slide. So collectively as partners, we have compiled and put together quite a comprehensive suite of resources, and you'll be encouraged to take your first steps to initiate your own VLR journey through your city, which you'll hear more about soon through other partners here. Rest assured, just to say that among the Mayors and Mayors Academy organizing partners present and supporting, you have many resources available to yourselves, including regional VLR guidelines, compendiums of VLRs, and other online training materials as well. Next slide. So on the other hand, just to note, while VLRs can aid you and your cities to reflect upon and measure progress, they can help you to identify and prioritize local needs based upon existing gaps, as well as supporting enhanced policy planning and action for sustainable development. At the same time, I just wanted to highlight the middle process, so the one that's highlighted in orange here, that results from the development of VLRs as well, which is ensuring that properly led, improved stakeholder engagement and more inclusive decision-making also comes about as a process of VLRs as well. So this is about having everybody in your community on board with the decision and respecting the results that come out of the assessment process as well. Next slide. So finally, I just wanted to share here an overview of the process for developing a VLR, which can take about 6 to 9 months. Don't worry about taking all the notes down. We'll be sharing the slides and you'll hear much more about the process and be guided through it in subsequent modules as well. But to understand that it's an ever-evolving process, because the data and the situations that are in your cities can reflect, can change, on a daily basis and quite suddenly. So I would just perhaps leave you with a thought, and most importantly is that when you are looking at undertaking your VLR, is to look at which work streams you are in the best position to address right away, right? And making sure you bring the right group of people from your respective departments and community representatives to the table so that you can jointly agree on starting the VLR. So the first step's always the hardest, in a journey of 1,000 miles, right? So take that step. We look forward to working with you throughout the academy and supporting you in your VLR journey. And with that, I'll end. I hope I've kept to time and you found the presentation useful, and hand back to the moderators. Many thanks again.
Thank you so much, Tam, for this comprehensive and interesting introduction. It's always wonderful to have a refresher. Now, as we are nearing the end of our first module, we have prepared a short quiz to gather some feedback from you to make sure that the upcoming modules are as relevant to you as possible. And just like before, I'd like to invite you to join the quiz either via the link that my colleague is sharing in the chat, or via scanning the QR code that's up on the slide, or by accessing the menti.com website and entering the code. I'll just wait a couple more seconds to see if more players join. Okay, let's go. We first have two very short questions about the contents that Tam just presented, just to see, who paid attention. Before we move to the feedback question. So our first question is, this is a true or false question. Is it true that localizing is only applicable to local governments? Is this statement true or false? I can see that 2 mayors have selected the correct answer. Localizing is also applicable to subnational governments. And now let's move to the next question. Again, a true or false question. Is it true that the 3 pillars of sustainable development are mitigation, adaptation, and finance? Is this true or false? Three mayors have answered so far, and 4, 5, 5 of you have answered correctly. Of course, the 3 pillars are economy, society, and the environment, just like Tam explained to us earlier. Fantastic. Then I think we can skip the leaderboard and move to feedback questions we have for you. What we'd like to know from you are which of the presented frameworks are the most relevant to your work? Is it the Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework, the New Urban Agenda, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, or are none of them relevant to you? I'll wait a little bit more for people to select answers. Oh, and multiple answers are possible. You can select more than one if you'd like to. Okay, but I see there's a clear trend towards the SDGs. Let's move on. And then on which of the presented frameworks would you like to receive more information from the Academy? It's the same frameworks as in the previous question. And again, here you may select more than one if you are interested in more than one. Okay, very interesting. Again, the SDGs and the Sendai framework, the New Urban Agenda as well. Good. Okay, let's move on to the next question. What forms of stakeholder engagement do you as a mayor use? Do you use public meetings? Do you use surveys among the public? Do you use advisory groups? Or do you at the moment not use any of these? Very interesting. Thank you for providing these answers. Yes, let's move on. And which levels of stakeholder engagement do you think are most important? Is it to inform the stakeholders? Is it to consult with the stakeholders, to involve stakeholders, to collaborate with them, or to empower them to take action? Well, the answers are really rolling in. Thank you for your active participation. Perfect. That's a very clear trend. Let's move on. Lastly, our last question is, what kind of guidance do you wish to receive from the Academy in developing your initiative? Would you like technical assistance, strategic guidance, financial advice, mentorship and networking, or marketing and branding? You may select multiple answers if you wish to receive guidance on several dimensions. This question is so that we can ensure that you get exactly the kind of help that you wish for. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for your feedback. This was the last question, so we will move back to the presentation, and I will hand over to Liz, I think, to quickly introduce the next upcoming module.
Yes. Thank you, Fabia. This is Liz from the United Cities and Local Governments Asia Pacific. Since we're a little behind time, it's already so I'll try to do the introduction quickly. So next slide, please. So as you may have heard, the cities of today are confronted with interconnected crises, which necessitates innovative solutions. So Module 2 on navigating a multi-crisis context will introduce recovery frameworks and initiatives and link crisis recovery, resilience, and the SDGs. Next slide, please. We will also be giving you 2 homework for Module 2. So one is on the VLR journey, and the initiative planning template will also be shared to you. So next slide, please. So in your application to the Academy, you will recall that we asked if you will be interested to undertake a voluntary local review. So through the VLR journey, you will be able to learn more about the VLR, and we will also be having specific sessions on the VLR in the succeeding modules. But you can access the VLR journey through the website vlr.unescap.org. Next slide, please. And then from there, we request you to select the novice option at the bottom of the page. And then you can then register. So you will register an email first where you will receive a link to set a password for your account. And in case you do not receive the email in your inbox, please check your other folders just in case it gets to your spam mail or junk mail. But you should be able to receive a link that will enable you to create a password for your account. Next slide, please. And then once you already have your account, you'll be able to start your VLR journey. So in a few clicks and a few questions, you will be able to reach. The target is to have the Visionary Award before the next module. Next slide, please. So we will also be sharing with you the template for the initiatives that you are expected to develop throughout the module. So this will be filled out progressively, not just for module 2, but across the different modules. So we will send you a more detailed guide on how to use the template later on. So that's it. Back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, for introducing module 2, to which we are all looking forward. Now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Christina to deliver the closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mayors, it's been amazing to meet you all for this first module. And I would just like to, because we're very late, just thank you all for your engagement. We're looking forward, the whole team is looking forward to work with you over the next 6 months. You will meet many more facilitators that will provide you support and guidance. And also thank you for your feedback on the last questions, on the last quiz. That was really, really helpful. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks and to learn more and work with you on the next module and going forward. So thank you very much for being here with us today. And I shall pass back because we are very short in time today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. Then this concludes our module 1 of the 2024 Mayors Academy. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Very much.
Take care, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
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 Take care.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.